And next up are a number of items that interact differently than the description says, and all of them happen to be related to wrath. So the first item is the line breaker boots. These boots say that once per turn when you dash, you gain wrath for 2 turns, but what really happens is that you gain 3 turns of wrath when you dash, and you can gain this more than once per turn. So line breaker boots, way better than it says. In fact, you can actually keep gaining 3 wrath for as many times as you dash, up to a maximum of 7 turns of wrath. Each turn of wrath grants +1 damage, which means a maximum of +7 damage is possible, which isn't game breaking for how many actions you're using. The second item that works differently than described is the Blood Guzzler Garb. This uncommon grants 1 turn of wrath when an enemy damages the wearer, or so it says, but instead it actually grants 2 turns of wrath, and this can be triggered only once per turn. So while it might be better for an encounter with a single enemy that only attacks once per turn, it's much worse against many attacks where you might think you can get lots and lots of wrath, but it's limited to only activating once per turn, so not really as good as described. The third wrath item that functions differently than described is the Cap of Wrath. The Cap of Wrath says that it grants 2 turns of wrath at the start of the wearer's turn if the wearer has 50% hit points or less. However, the description is not accurate, and the Cap of Wrath will only grant 1 turn of wrath at the start of the wearer's turn if they have 50% hit points or less. So this helmet is actually half as effective as described. Not only that, but for starting combat at 50% health, this bonus is really not worth it, making this helmet really not that great. And the last wrath item that does not work as described is the Enraged Heart Garb. This rare says that the wearer gains 2 turns of wrath while raging and also gains +2 constitution. And while the wearer does immediately gain 2 constitution upon equipping, the 2 turns of wrath that are promised to us upon raging never actually appear, not upon initial use of rage and not during start of turn while raging. The Enraged Heart Garb seems to not grant wrath at all, regardless of if you're raging, which could throw you into a fit of rage IRL, so I'd avoid this and the Cap of Wrath as 2 wrath items that are definitely not worth it, even if they might fit a build.